Hello and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined as ever by the inspiration behind the hit movie Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman, Rich Hudson. God, that was hard to get out. To talk to you about Google Stadia. Stadia? Google Stadia. They kept saying it. I've literally just finished watching the press conference again and I still can't remember it. Obviously, the console that Google announced last night, the all-streaming, all-powerful future of video games. Rich, what are your initial opinions before we jump into the specs?
Well, it's not a console, is it?
It's not really.
It's not a console. It's a service.
Bank.
It's the Netflix for games that we've seen about a billion times before with Nvidia tried to do it. Obviously, Xbox have tried to do it. Obviously, they moved on to Game Pass.
Yep.
PlayStation tried to do it. The Ouya.
Oh my god, I forgot all about
Ouya. That was
Ouya.
the Game Stick was another one, I think. There was like a controller with a USB stick that you'd like slot into the bottom of it.
You could literally be making that up and I wouldn't even know.
Okay, but yeah, this has been tried and done before. If you don't know, basically Google Stadia is just super duper high quality streaming to your Chrome browser, to a Chromecast, to a TV stick, to something running Chrome OS or something like that. And it's just game streaming as we've seen, but done by Google.
I mean, yeah, the vision they're selling is that you could be watching the trailer for Assassin's Creed Odyssey and see the button to play now on whatever you're watching, laptop, fridge, like Rich said, and then you press the button and within 5 seconds, they claim, you're in the game from wherever like you left off or wherever you want to be, and that is crazy.
It's ridiculous.
True, but of course, there are potential problems that come with this, no doubt, latency issues. Like you said, this has been tried before and it hasn't always worked. I mean, you can try playing PlayStation Now and get a horrible experience trying to play Sly Cooper, which is what I did, and it was just the worst.
Oh, wow.
But like we were saying before we started recording, if anyone could do this, it's kind of Google, because they went into the sort of infrastructure they have and all the data banks they have around the world and all like the server farms. I'm just skipping over my words because I'm excited.
Google just are the internet.
Yes,
you think of the internet, you think of Google. And the fact they're doing a game service, it kind of makes, as I said, it's been done to death a million times before, and pretty much every single time it hasn't really worked.
Yeah.
Hence why Xbox Game Pass became a download service, which makes a lot more sense. But obviously Google aren't doing that because you won't have the hardware to play on.
Yeah.
But like, if anyone could do this and do this well, or at least do this better, it's Google.
Well, that's it, because they were talking about the sort of improvements. They're not just planning on taking the games you already know and love and sort of replicating them in their current form. They're talking about pushing their quality to the max and improving the performance of them. They talked about the fact that you don't need to go through public broadband to get like the game. It's just done on their server side. How that would improve multiplayer. They talked about the water physics, for instance, and the way those can be rendered using the streaming service as opposed to the regular multiplayer infrastructure now. And it seems like they're aiming to sort of nail this high quality next gen experience almost. They even mentioned that their GPU is stronger than both the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X combined. I think
Which wouldn't surprise me at all.
Exactly, yeah. I think it was like 10.7 teraflops, Rich. I don't know what that means, but that sounds exciting. But it's like kind of crazy. If they can pull that off, then that is definitely something Microsoft and Sony and anyone else making consoles need to be worried about, because if they can nail that vision, then, I mean, that's going to appeal to not only hardcore gamers who want that extra quality, the silky smooth experience, you know, that they're selling, as well as casual gamers who will be like, that looks really good, I want to jump in that right now and not have to go out and install it, because...
Or buy a console to do it,
console to do it. And I mean, like, one of the biggest problems this generation is the lack of plug-in and play. You can't just pick up a game anymore and stick it in the console and then jump straight into it. You have to wait for a day one patch to install. You have to wait for the game itself to install. And that can be extremely frustrating.
It can, but the thing is, they're saying all these wonderful things about how it's going to be really quick, plug and play, there's going to be no problems with anything, it'll be lovely, silky smooth, but internet across the world is not the same for everyone. No. That's the reason why streaming services in the past haven't really worked, because not everyone has a fantastic internet connection. So to say 4K 60 over the internet, it's not that many people that might be able to do that. There's a lot of people I know that have got terrible internet. There are a lot of people who are saying, I have got terrible internet, this will not work for me. Now, admittedly, yes, this is Google. As you've said, their servers will be you'll be directly connected to them. It'll be a very, very sort of interference-free connection, but still, whatever speed you get will impact what you will be doing.
That's it, yeah. I mean, there was a quote from Tech Radar who had a hands-on with it at the event, and he said that, this is great in theory, and he said that theoretically, between Google's server farms and compression, transmission, and processing algorithms, you could theoretically enable 4K 60 frames per second gameplay at a minimum of 30 megabytes per second connection. Like, that's the dream. If you have that baseline,
that's quite good.
You can get this. Again, we'll see if it actually works, but as someone who lived the majority of his life in the arse end of nowhere with a connection speed of 1 megabyte per second,
I'm absolutely on the same page as you.
I don't know if this would appeal to my former self. I'm lucky enough to live in a city that has good internet now, but I
love my internet connection now. I love it to bits.
I was downloading The Division last night, and it was it was incredible. It was like compared to what I was used to back living with my parents. That was bad, Rich. It would take days and days to download a game, never mind stream a game in 4K 60 frames per second. So I don't know if this is an experience for everyone. They're pitching it as an experience for everyone, but not everyone has these great internet connections, and it's easy to take them for granted once you do have them. But there are so many people, not just in the UK, but around the world, because this is launching this year.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of 2019 in the UK, Canada, most of Europe, and the US, obviously.
Interesting how the UK and Europe were separate.
Yes, no impending splits there.
Interestingly, though, for example, Australia is not on this list, and Australia are known for having very weird data caps with internet, so going streaming only is very much not going to work for them, because they'll cap their plan will cap, and they'll be stuffed for the rest of the month with no internet. So this will not really work across the downward pond.
I think that's like the biggest indication that this is very sort of experimental tech, and as good as it's going to work, no doubt, in those control focus tested areas where everything is up and running smoothly. There are big emissions, like you said, like Australia just won't be able to, make this function properly, and that's a huge shame and a huge hurdle that's not as easy to get over as making a new console that's slightly more kind of like impressive. That's a huge, it's at the same time, it's a huge audience you're alienating, but then you're opening up to
a bigger audience that's like has the good internet, basically.
Yes, that's
I know what you mean.
A more concentrated, larger audience in one place rather than a broad spectrum of people, and that might work for Google. I mean, it might.
I mean, the other thing that I was going to mention earlier, but my mind just decided to leave.
Go ahead.
Was the idea that yes, it's all very like plug and play. There's just no waiting. There's no fanning about. But obviously, because it's like server side, you've got a machine somewhere else doing all the rendering for you, and then outputting to you specifically. They're not going to have an infinite number of machines, so there will be a point when you will be in a queue waiting to get on the game. So it's not necessarily the case that you'll be watching a video and go, yeah, I want to play that. You press the button, it's like, you're 60th in the queue, and you're waiting to buy theatre tickets or concert tickets. Like that.
God, no.
That could be the case. It depends on how big of a service they do. I'm guessing that depending on how big it is, I'm assuming that Google have taken a big step to make sure they've got a lot of servers all ready to go, a lot of systems, machines all ready to render with people. But obviously, I feel like either it's going to be massively underperforming or they'll be massively overperforming, and then a load of people will be out of like luck in terms of getting into a game for the first God knows how many months of this service launching.
There's an interesting thing that they said with their controller, because obviously, it's their big press conference. They're not going to go into sort of negatives or potential negatives, but there was one telling thing in that they are releasing their own controller alongside the console called the Stadia controller, but you can use your existing ones. You can use like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation 4 controller.
You can use keyboard and mouse if you're on
or keyboard and mouse,
obviously.
The majority of people, no doubt. But the interesting thing is the controller they're making connects directly to by Wi-Fi to their data banks. So they said that will actually give you a sort of
little less latency.
But that if you need that in the first place, it raises alarm bells in my head as how is the experience going to be on your own controllers, like at home. Like if you're making that specifically for that service, I don't know, it's just one of those grey areas.
Connecting from like here to like, for example, where the camera is in terms of like the distance between your controller and your console, and then that going out to the internet, surely just having that go straight to the internet as well versus that isn't really going to make much of a difference.
You would hope.
Even though people who went to the event had said, we tried it out, but we tried it out on the show floor, it was amazing, it was incredible how well this worked. That was behind not closed doors, but it was in like a closed like system. If they were saying, yes, this is actually being, like, we have the server set up wherever it is, and, like, this is being streamed as normal, it's like, that's great, but of course they would have tried their damned hardest to sell it and be as big. Like, look how incredible this is. And if that works, then, you know, I will eat my words.
Yeah, exactly.
I will honestly eat my words, but I'm not convinced I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but I'm not convinced it's really going to take off as much as they would like. Because I think there's still a lot of people out there who are like, yes, we get the pain of getting a game, taking it out of the box and installing it, but that's been the norm now for what, like 7 years?
Yeah, I mean,
so
like...
it's kind of, I think people are getting more used to that, and I think there are other people who are like, I'd rather just have the game.
Yeah.
If, like, for example, you're moving house and you don't have internet for a few days, Stadia is going to be useless for you. If the internet goes down because of a storm or some idiot crashes into a telegraph pole, you're stuffed. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting one because I think Google they're really not risking it, but I think they're really ambitious with this because of how the Ouya failed, because of how the Game Stick failed, because of how Game Pass became something else, because of how nobody cares about PlayStation now. It's like, it's a weird thing to jump into.
You would hope they're sort of in the position to learn from all of those mistakes and then create like the definitive experience, but who knows. I have one question for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
Because Rich, you stream. You really enjoy streaming. There is huge integrated features in this service to allow you to play with your audience and vice versa by just clicking a button, and then you can join a streamer's lobby if they're playing a multiplayer game and they allow it, or you can pick up directly where a streamer left off in your own game of a single player game.
Yeah.
To me, I'm completely out the streaming zone.
Yeah.
But for someone inside it, how will this impact like that entire world?
That's kind of cool, I've got to say, but I think it's going to be more of a system in place that maybe won't be used as frequently as Google would like it to if they're going to be ingraining it into like the base of the whole service. But I think it's very, very clever. I mean, again, it'll only work if you're streaming on YouTube, and I stream on Twitch.
That's it, yeah.
So, yeah. But I think it's very interesting. I like the way that how they've gone, hey, we like developers, we like players, we like audiences, you know, we're doing all of that in one. And it's kind of like how Microsoft and Sony both went, hey, we've got a share button now on the PlayStation and the Xbox. It's kind of that same thing. And I think that's a really interesting idea. I'm intrigued to see how well it would work. 'Cause obviously, it'd only work if they're playing a supported Stadia game, like, for example, Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Doom. Yeah. It's like, I think that's a very clever system to have in place. I think I'm really keen to see it in action, like actually
that's it, isn't it?
Here or at home, rather than just hearing about it on a show floor, which, you know, as we've seen from, like, trade shows in the past.
Remember the Connect!
The show floor doesn't always represent what we're going to get in the end, but I think, yeah, as we said right at the beginning of this video, I think if anyone can do this right, it's Google. So I am intrigued, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Me too.
I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see how it pans out. But also, another thing we haven't mentioned yet, there's no pricing.
That's it. Oh,
They've not said anything about how much it'll cost.
Just, who knows? Like, it's kind of unprecedented. Are you going to have to like pay an upfront cost, or is it just a monthly subscription? I have no idea, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think the Google Stadia, I keep messing that up, is the future of video games, or will it fall by the wayside because it's just kind of untested at the moment? But I'm kind of looking forward to at least trying Doom Eternal on there. But either way, let us know down in the comments below. Give us a like, share, subscribe if you want to, and thank you very much for watching. I have been Josh.
I have been Rich.
You've been watching WhatCulture Gaming, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.